Welcome to Crim City. I'm Mark Murray.
I'm Josh Hanrahan.
This week on Crim City, we're going to talk about seizure of assets from criminals.
Oh, there's a few nice little Louis Vuitton.
Yeah. Travel bags.
Travel bags, yeah. Geez.
Where did they get them?
Where did they get them from? So we've just come back from the AFP headquarters where we've seen some of these lavish items.
And we were lucky we got a glimpse. We talked to the federal police. I think they call themselves...
CACT.
Yeah.
Which stands for?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I got the question.
But basically, they're the guys.
I think it's the Criminal Asset Confiscation Team.
They're the guys that go and take all the money off the crooks. So we're having coffee with a senior member of the AFP media team about a whole range of things. Something came up about confiscations, remember? And I think that did kind of lure us in with the diamond-encrusted bra.
Yeah, you're fixated on that. Yeah.
And also to explain to us that these goods end up being sold at auction. And the money does eventually come back. They go to community-type programs.
Yeah.
But it was literally just an invitation to go and talk to the guys and go and look at some of these things. I thought we were going to go to a dirty, great big warehouse.
A vault, yeah.
One thing we did get to see is they had a bottle of cognac. Now, this bottle of cognac that they got during a recent operation was Louis XIII.
Yep.
Must have been his because...
It's pretty regal.
Yeah.
You're intrigued by this one, aren't you? This is the $40,000 bottle of cognac.
I don't like cognac, but for $40,000 I'd have a sip. Wow.
It's got its own private little case. Geez, you wouldn't want to come home from the pub. It'd take about 10 minutes to get into it, wouldn't it?
That was part of an asset seizure. They also got a whole lot of really expensive bags that I can't pronounce, Hermes and...
Yep. Louis Vuitton.
Louis Vuitton. I got him mixed up with the cognac.
You did.
And so we asked, they said, how many bottles did you seize? And they said 2. How many did we see there?
Well, there was only one.
Yeah. Makes you wonder.
Is that how every bottle looks?
Like the missing other one? But no, they were pretty honest guys. You
They
can
were
tell.
good blokes,
They were good
yeah.
blokes. There's these myths. Every morning I go to my coffee shop, there's a guy that comes in and he goes, where does all that stuff get sold that those coppers seize? I said, it's on public auction. He said, no. The auction that they go to that no one else knows about. I said, bullshit.
Yeah, there's the myth that they keep some of the really good stuff for a little private auction that no one knows about.
Yeah, the back of Mudgee, you go there and you can buy a $40,000 bottle of cognac for $18. When in fact they said, again, there's all these hoops and balances. It goes through this other authority so that, there's no conflict there. There were other things they were talking about, like a USB stick, which they said had hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of cryptocurrency on it, right? Which I can't understand.
No. So I guess what we cover a lot are police raids that result in arrests. But what also happens when police stay around after they've taken whoever the individual in question may be away in handcuffs and off for questioning is they stay around and gather evidence. And not only do they gather evidence about whatever crime they're investigating, but they also gather evidence about things that this person may have in their possession, which they may have illegally acquired.
Well, they've legally acquired with illegal money.
Exactly.
So this is things like the really fast cars that they drive.
Yes.
And then there was the rumoured diamond-encrusted bra that got me really quite excited. And the guys there today said, no, actually it was costume jewellery on a bra.
Yeah.
It's not quite the same thing. The other thing that was interesting is they can also seize instruments of crime, like they got hold of an excavator which was used to import and secrete drugs.
Yeah, that's one of the great x-rays of just this excavator, and you can just see the inside of the whole arm of that excavator from, the cabin down to whatever the thing on the end of the excavator is called.
Yeah, thing at the end of the excavator. Yeah.
Is just filled with these packages of drugs, and that was a big Australian syndicate that was operating all through Europe.
Yeah.
The term that we throw around a lot, if you ever read our articles in the Daily Telegraph, is proceeds of crime.
Yeah.
It's things that police allege criminals have bought with the money that they have obtained through drug dealing, whatever their vice may be. And it was interesting having the conversation. One thing that the underworld is known for is its watches.
That's a watch that
No idea how much.
That's pretty swish.
it would be millions.
Millions and millions. Yeah. I couldn't believe one of the guys.
Gangsters love showing off their watches, and we kind of talked about that with a couple of the guys out of this team with the AFP, and I kind of said, why? You know, obviously there's the flashiness and the fact that your watch is worth a lot of money, but is there anything else to it? And they said, well, yeah, one of the things is that if you go overseas,
Yeah, it's portable money.
we're talking watches that are worth
3 to 7 million, some of them. Like
crazy money.
$3 million watch.
You got $3 million on your wrist, you can liquidate that into cash.
It's just basically money laundering.
Totally.
There's one watch that they believe they can't value.
Yeah.
It's the Hermes.
The Hermes one, yeah.
And it's hand painted.
Yeah, it's hand painted, one of a kind.
And they love buying handbags. One of the handbags was worth $40,000 that we looked at. And they pay in cash.
Probably the low end of the scale. That
Yeah.
$40,000 handbags, they go quite expensive.
Yeah. So we did learn quite a lot. Like these guys say, all the cash they see is that goes into consolidated revenue and then it's all bagged.
It was interesting. One of the questions that you asked was about, it's obviously not just watches or diamond-encrusted bras or anything
That's how
like
I asked that
that.
3 times that one. Yeah.
You did. You kept harping on. But it's homes. That's the biggest thing,
Well,
taking
blocks
your
of
property.
flats.
This is the power of
Yeah.
sort of us. So we won't just do suburbs or houses. Or things. We'll come in and
Personal
Which
stuff.
suburbs have you taken? Suburbs.
Suburbs.
Almost. So there was
suburbs.
there was a big investigation earlier this year, and several arrests made into an alleged Asian organised crime syndicate, which had been buying up land out near the new airport in Western Sydney. And it was interesting having a chat to Paula Hudson, who's the assistant commissioner with the AFP overseeing the CACS team, and she had this to say about that seizure of land out near Badgerys Creek, the new airport in Sydney's west.
That was approximately 157 million in that land, that real estate, and then there was obviously cryptocurrency and other luxury items, watches. So that was our single biggest seizure, and it's approximately 213 million.
When cops seize this and blocks of units, they effectively become landlords.
Yeah.
But to put themselves at arm's length, they have this other thing called an Australian Financial Security Authority. How's that?
That's good.
That was pretty impressive. And they administer all that until it's decided what happened. So there are things you don't think about.
So, Moz, how do they get their hands on these items?
Invariably, it starts once they've arrested somebody and charged them, they then will notify them that they are going to seize Porsches, houses, bank accounts under the Proceeds of Crime Act. And that's when the legal battle will start.
And it's quite a complex process because the onus of proof isn't quite what it is in a criminal trial, where it has to be beyond reasonable doubt. I know, for instance, with some of the cryptocurrency, it essentially goes to court and the police say, we suspect this is proceeds of crime, and they can go to what they call an ex parte hearing initially, which is where they make that application to charge somebody with having property they allege are the proceeds of crime. So if police were alleging that Moz had a Lamborghini that he'd bought with proceeds of crime, they would go to court and Moz wouldn't be there, and a magistrate or judge would say yay or nay to their application. And then from there, they charge the person, then it comes before a court. And so there's obviously the criminal proceedings, but then separately, there's the civil proceedings around that car, and that person would have to provide evidence as to why they say, no, that's not something I bought with proceeds of crime. I bought that legitimately with money I earned from XYZ, and then it goes back to the police, and then they have to mount their case again in return, and then ultimately the judge will make a call.
And sometimes they come back 2-3 years after they've arrested them and take the Range Rover off the wife.
One of the most interesting things I found was that sometimes there's debates between the police and whoever the crook may be.
They negotiate.
They negotiate exactly over when things should be sold because they can seize shares,
And crypto,
cryptocurrency,
yeah.
as you said. And so what will happen is the crook might say, I think crypto's, peaked and it's going to plummet soon. I want you to sell it now.
Yeah.
In case they get it back. So then they'll maximise their profits. And the same thing with the shares. But
And then it's
similarly,
held in a holding fund while the courts fight.
similarly, the police can sometimes sell things if they think it's costing them too much or it's, this is the peak time to make the sale.
They learnt from seizing a plane and waiting to sell it that it was costing him a lot.
Talk about the plane.
So in 2014, there was a international cartel. It was one of my favourite stories where this plane landed in Albion Park down in Wollongong. But what cops had alleged, and then what they eventually said, is that it had flown under the radar, so it's a black flight, and it was used to transport guns, drugs all around the country and interstate. So the cops seized this plane. They were quite excited. And then I remember talking to the guy from the Crime Commission. He says, that fucking plane. He said, we haven't been able to get rid of it while the court case is going on. And we've got to pay all the hanging fees, for the hangers.
Keep it in the hangar, yeah.
Keep it in the hangar. And a similar thing, they arrested a very prominent race trainer, Damien Flower, who trained a horse called Snitzel, which is a silly name for a horse, but a champion horse. And he was one of Australia's leading trainers, studs everywhere. And the reason why he could afford to do that was he had a little sideline where he'd go along to the Mascot Airport where he'd meet a baggage handler mate of his and they'd bring in 25 kilos of coke every few weeks. So, but when they arrested him and he got sentenced, they had all these horses. So the Crime Commission ended up with a stable of potentially champion horses, but they've got to fucking feed them. Recently, one of the guys convicted over one of the big tax frauds, he actually had his own racing team. They confiscated one of the cars.
Yeah.
They said when they lose their millions and millions of dollars that they think they've earned really through selling drugs, that it shatters them. And they would rather go to jail than lose all their goods.
Yeah. Paula Hudson from the AFP had this to say about how they set specific targets when CAC started.
The command itself in 2019 set the KPI of 600 million stripped from organised criminals in 5-year period, and at this stage we are currently in excess of 900 million.
Wow!
Since that time, so yeah, we've significantly upped the ante.
There's such a standing that comes with having the nice home, the nice car, the nice watch. Cops talk all the time about how it's luring young kids into a life of crime because of
flash cars and everything.
Because if young kids are growing up in an impoverished environment or wherever it may be, that's appealing for obvious reasons. And so that's where the trouble goes. But I remember you asked these guys today at the AFP about kids. Do you take, about how they're kind of caught up?
The family's collateral damage when they lose all these. Because he said, look, we do sometimes take computers and phones because these guys are so unscrupulous and no morality. They set up bank accounts in their kids' names. They will use their devices potentially to make transactions so it doesn't come back to them. So the kids end up losing their phones or laptops while they're being used in court or being searched, which would be pretty bad. Like, actually what you'd find on my computer when I was 14. Didn't have one. Right. But anyway.
It's interesting you're talking about the kids and the impact on them, and it's not like the police go and target the kids, but I know in some instances their investigations have led them into kids' bank accounts.
Well, they were a little bit off the track, but there was some drug traffickers bringing in heroin in the kids' nappy in eastern suburbs that I remember covering years ago. They've got no scruples. They present themselves as these loving family figures a lot of the time, and the consequences of when they do fall and come down, wives are left with enormous bills or their standing is just crashed because the cops, quite rightly, are ruthless.
Yeah, I asked Paula what her message was to the crooks, and it was actually really interesting to hear what she had to say.
My message is that our AFP strategy and that of the AFP-led CACT in targeting the criminal economy through restraining assets and removing profits of crime is what we deem as our kryptonite against organised crime. Not only are we coming for the criminals and their networks, but we're also going to be coming for your homes, vehicles, cash, jewellery and other luxury items that's been accumulated through illicit money and means.
They didn't say it, but they don't mind seeing the fact that they break some of these guys by stripping them of all their power, which is, to them, money, fast cars, handbags and cash. The New South Wales Crime Commission and their AFPs, they said that if you think you're going to go and do a couple of years in jail and that'll be okay, I'll come out and I'll jump in my Lamborghini and then have the life. You won't. Thanks for listening to Crim City. I'm Mark Murray.
I'm Josh Hanrahan. This episode's been produced and edited by Jasper Leake.
And executive producer Dan Box.
As always, you can see us weekly on TikTok. We go by the same name there, Crim City, but that's on the Daily Telegraph's TikTok page. For more crime stories, go to dailytelegraph.com.au.